So this week on the Nightstand, we're talking about supporting characters, expendable characters, the red shirts, or the sassy whatever friend. They're always sassy. They seem to be always sassy anyway. Much like in real life. You know, so much so that you just want them to shut up, right? It's really hard for me to give advice on writing because I feel like it's a very personal thing that everyone needs to kind of figure out on their own. So I'm not going to be able to talk generally. This is going to be very subjective because it's about me and what I do when I write. When I sat down to write my first book, I'm not going to lie, I threw in some really cardboard secondary characters just because I knew I was going to kill them off in the end, or in the middle, or in the beginning, or whatever. You know, they're red shirts, basically. And I didn't have any hesitation about doing that because what I had planned for the other characters, the friends, you know, the true supporting characters, was a sense of realism. In the sense that when friends have been together a long time or when they connect almost instantly, it's because they have such a connection with the language they use, with the humor and everything, that they kind of sound the same. Now, that's true of real life, and it's, you know, that may be like a fun experience to be in, but to read about, it's something completely different. People say they want to read contemporary realism or realistic fiction or whatever, but what they really mean is they want a heightened version of that that keeps it interesting. If you specifically set forth to write supporting characters that are very similar to your primary character, your protagonist, then it kind of can read as very staid, very boring. So that's a really kind of a difficult place to put yourself in. And I'm not going to lie, my first books didn't do well sales-wise, and I'm not sure that that's entirely due to supporting characters. I can't say that entirely. So let's talk about red shirts. I mean, what's more interesting? I'm gonna give you a choice here. A character who you've gotten a brief description of and then they're dropping dead, or a character that you have gotten some interesting tidbits about that you might be able to connect with as maybe someone in your life and then kill them off. I mean, those two things are like big issues for me. It's like, you know, okay, I've got to add in as many little pieces of information about this character that I'm going to kill. This, you know, if you're painting it on cardboard, you know, paint it thick is what I'm saying. And that's going to make the event, the murder, the disappearance, the whatever, that's going to make that much more interesting and impactful. So that's just a red shirt tidbit. That's kind of what I do with red shirts. And if you've never heard the term red shirts before, that just means a character that you put into a story with the intention, the sole intention of killing off. The other piece is the sassy whatever friends, you know. I'd hate for it to sound like those have become sort of a convention of storytelling, but, you know, if your character is not exactly flamboyant and exciting and comedic and humorous all the time, you probably could use some counterpoint. I think that's what I mean by that, is that if you put in some counterbalance in the relationships of your protagonist with these supporting characters, you have a much more interesting relationship, you know, and the reader will have a much more pleasant time reading the book. I mean, it's that, it gets back to that, you know, heightened realism thing. If it's too much like real life, then it becomes uninteresting. But if it's bigger than real life, then, you know, it's something you look forward to picking up the book and turning to the page again. And now, a warning. I would really hesitate to put a ton of scenes in your manuscript of your character kind of going it alone, relying entirely on inner monologue and extrapolation and blocky scenes of action, and no, I wouldn't do that. I think you learn more about a protagonist by their interaction with other people, secondary characters, than you ever will by them just telling you what they're thinking. Because it's true. I mean, that in real life, getting back to the whole realistic thing, in real life, you have to have sort of an experience with another person to kind of bring out what it is about you that makes you different. I mean, obviously there are exceptions to that rule. Hermits, don't have a lot of interactions with other people, and they're defined by the fact that they're enclosed, I guess. But I mean, reading about that is not necessarily interesting, right? We're dialogue driven. We like to talk, we like to listen, we like to overhear things, all those kind of things. And the minute the story becomes internal and less about action and vocalization and dialogue, I don't know about you, but as a reader, I tune out. And I think the other piece is, and this is just sort of a structural thing. If you're a writer, this is probably not something you haven't heard. But there's a certain structure to stories and a certain way that a reader's eyes sort of rummage a page. And I don't use that term lightly. I mean, it's literally, you kind of rummage through it. And this could be even when you're picking up the book to decide to buy it. If a book is written in large, clunky paragraphs without a lot of breaking up of dialogue, if it doesn't look like there's interaction and things like that, it actually turns off a reader. Even if you're writing a scene that doesn't have supporting characters in it, break up those paragraphs so that it at least looks like you're managing some internal dialogue. An internal monologue is separate from the action. You're separating it up, changing it. Short sentences, big paragraphs, lots of different movement throughout the page. A jumble of different mixed up sentence lengths and things like that is much more appealing than blocks of words. So that's it. That's all I've got for you about supporting characters. And that last piece wasn't even about supporting characters, but it's advice nonetheless. It's what I do. Do you know what? As with any of these videos or blogs or whatever, take what you will from them. And if it doesn't resonate for you, throw it out. That's just kind of how it is. In the end, it's all up to the agents and editors, and they're just gonna shoot you down anyway. Or not, or not. I'm just saying that. I don't know. Bye.